Andrea, thank you so much for joining us today. I know it is such a busy time with your new program launching. So I just want to take a moment and really thank you and honor you for all the work you're doing in the environment out there. For all of our people at home who are watching this on my inner circle, I have a really great program that we're going to share with you today. It is the Roots CS program that is here locally managing and helping all of our community. And I'm really happy to have with us Angela and Andrea today, who are going to talk about this program. The inner circle is all about women being up to amazing things out there. And this group of women right here, I'm telling you, they are up to some amazing things. So before I do, let me just talk a little bit about the Roots program, and then we'll get in a bit deeper with Angela and Andrea. But the Roots program is really geared towards helping Caribbean, Black, and Africans in the community to have a voice and to find the resources that they need out there. And Andrea and Angela's team, they fight tirelessly to make sure that they are working on breaking down the systemic issues, trying to create equality and be the voice of the community, and also bring across programs that help those women and families out there that need assistance, whether it be through surviving domestic violence, whether it be through needing some help in the time of need, such as food and supplies, or their new program, which is providing some assistance for those who need some mental help during all of these difficult times that we've been embarking on. So we're going to talk about that. But before we jump in, let me tell you how I got blessed enough to meet these wonderful women. For those of you who know me, you know I've been involved with the Basket Brigade Canada for the last decade. I love Joanne, the president, who's running that program and serving families in our local community every day with COVID and at least multiple times a year during the holidays in the normal year. Well, one year I was packing boxes and sorting groceries, and I was lucky enough to meet Angela, this beautiful ray of sunshine that caught my attention from across the room and just really made me want to come in and talk to her. So I went over and I chatted with Angela, and I found out that her organization helps to provide some names to the Basket Brigade. So some of those families I'm delivering to are thanks to Angela and the work that the Roots organization is doing. So Angela Carter, Executive Director of Roots CS, thank you for being here. And Andrea Randall, Vice President, serving here for 3 years on the program. Angela, just you do so much. I don't know how you do it all. You are, you're an executive. You've worked with the executive companies out there. You have a financial background. You have a communications background. You write as a journalist, and you're doing all this community work. You sit on several boards to represent the Roots Yes organization. And you're the chair, I believe, for co-chair, pardon me, for the Anti-Black Racism and Systemic Discrimination Collective in Peel. While you're doing all of this, you're still finding time to smile and always be a blessing when I've been around you. So Angela, please tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll move on to Andrea.
Thank you so much, Tara. Yes, thank you. And I have to give a shout out to Joanne, where we met. She is a dynamo of a woman. So we are surrounded by some really wonderful, passionate women in our community. So thank you. And a bit about me. Okay, my role right now, for the last 5 years, I've been Executive Director of Roots Community Services. We call Roots CS. Mm-hmm. And but before, the organization was United Achievers Community Services, and I had volunteered with that organization back in the 1990s. Started about 1990 actually, and I volunteered for about 12 years with that organization. And did a lot of work back then, but then my life took a different turn, and then when I came back, and 5 years ago, I had the opportunity to apply to be the executive director of this wonderful organization. My background, as you said, is kind of varied. It's financial. I work with two financial institutions, really, for a total of about 19 years. but I was always also a journalist and a communication specialist. And my real strength and studies were in communications and culture. So I really enjoy culture. I've had the opportunity to travel to more than 20 countries. I did spent a few months in India where I really got immersed in that culture. And I worked with a school and with a hospital, do some work there. But I've traveled widely because I really love to learn about people, what
Mm.
what makes them tick, what's their background, why do they do the things they do. So that's a passion I have. So it melds well with the communications because again, social and behavior communications for change. That is what I how I marry communications and culture really.
Mm-hmm.
And my financial institution, I did work in communications most of that time when I was there anyway. So I also got to understand how this corporate world work from that perspective. Um, and all the while, I've been volunteering all along. I've volunteered at so many different organizations. I'm from Barbados. In the Caribbean, and I volunteered there as well. I was always I always worked helping others. That was one of my quest is a passion to help uplift people.
Mm-hmm.
So all of those things meld over time. You know, I've worked in different places as well. You know, those things meld over time and really come to where we are now, which is all of my skills are being used to really work in this position. And in the position, as you mentioned, I'm also the co-chair of the Anti-Black Racism and Systemic Discrimination Collective here in the region of Peel. And this is a newly formed collective that came together through COVID, because the region of Peel convened a community response table right at the beginning of COVID to bring all community partners together that are facing the community, that the community depended on them, people from within the community. And we look to see how best we can manage, be able to impart information as quickly as possible from the authorities, help our clients to understand what is being said, and help to guide them and provide them with the information that so they can make informed decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Out of that response tables, though, we realized that certain issues needed a more in-depth look and more work. So we formed different committees. Like seniors was one, youth was one, and the anti-Black racism and systemic discrimination was another. Because right at that time, right in the midst of COVID, we had the George Floyd killing that
Yes,
really shocked the world.
absolutely.
Right, and the Amy Cooper's call to the police again, all
Mm-hmm.
of those things that really showed that the discrimination and the racism that's within our society.
Yes, woven
And
into the fabrics, absolutely.
and we realized how important it was, and all eyes then were tuned and turned onto the this discrimination, and we established this community table out from that larger group. And we have about 40 to 50 organizations that's represented here, right across sections, not just Black organizations, but
Mm-hmm.
Black serve. And a lot of our mainstream organizations serve the Black community here in the region of Peel, because we are second largest visible minority, quote unquote, group here within the region of Peel.
Right.
And we are working on that. Our mandate really is to look and see how we can dismantle some of these barriers that are um, causing a lot of issues and problems and oppressing communities. So
Absolutely.
the focus is on anti-Black racism, but we believe that when we tackle the issues there, the other forms of racism among other groups will also disappear and be dismantled as well. So all society, all of us can rise and be rid of this, of these shackles, we call them.
Right. And Angela, I think that that is going to be something that we really want to dive into in today's topic. We want to talk more about that and how, you know, helping with the systemic issues in one population or with one group will definitely trickle feed into our entirety of our society, right? I think that's a critical thing. Just before we dive deeper into that and more about the Roots program, I'd like to just turn our attention to Andrea for a moment. And Andrea, I know you've been doing work out there in the community for 30 years as well, and you have recently been with Roots. Well, 3 years is not so recent, but you've been working with Roots CS for about the last 3 years. Can you talk to us a little bit about the vice president role and about yourself? Just tell us, a bit about all the work you've done. We'd love to hear that too.
No problem. Hi, thank you. So, my background is youth justice. So I come from the youth justice background, working with youth who are involved in the criminal justice system. That also brought me to have a meeting with Angela, just in looking at services, how we could partner and provide services for our youth. And then I met up with Angela in trying to provide some services through Roots as well, and trying to do some collaboration with both our client groups. So working with Roots, the first year I was with Roots, I was the secretary. And again, it was one of those things that back in the 90s, around the same time that Angela, because I remembered Angela even from then, I was a volunteer with the United Achievers as well. They had cultural programs and activities, and I brought my kids. So one of the things we know that our education system was very lacking in providing information and education about our cultural background. So it was very important for me to ensure that my kids were getting the information. So as a parent, you had to provide that because you had to fill in the gaps for things like that, right?
Right.
Please ignore the noise in the background because there is a program going on outside. I'm at work.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's where I got involved with volunteering with the Caribram for the Caribbean Pavilion. So volunteered with them for a number of years, and then life got busy, and then there was that separation. So it was almost like a homecoming or a rebirth again when Angela and I met up, and then it was like, hey, you know what? No, I really need to get back into doing some work with Roots. And that's where it started. And then my second year, I became the vice president, and then the third year I'm the vice president again. So Angela and the workers at Roots they're the front line. They're the ones that are doing the work. As a member of the board of directors, we're there to help support and to guide and provide whatever assistance they need to get the work, to help them just get the work done. And provide the support that the community needs. So, I mean, I have to honestly just say, look, it's hands off to Angela and the workers at Roots. They are an amazing group of people that go out there every day and tirelessly just provide for the community. And I'm so proud just to be a part of that group, and just to continue to support them and help out any way I can.
And Andrea, when you're helping out and you're participating in your community and you're showing up and you're taking the time to help make a difference, does that give you more energy?
It does, because if you know me, I don't know how I squeeze things into my day. There are times where I'm just like, I think I'm walking blind, but then I see Angela, who again, like, I don't know, I think, I don't know, it's like we seem to be attracted to the same things because all the people around us, this is our life. Like, we're constantly trying to squeeze more time out of the 24 hours that we have in doing all these things. But you know what? It's work that has to be done. And at the end of the day, when you finally crash, you feel like, all right, gotta get ready again for tomorrow, right?
And I did
So,
something though, right?
yeah,
And I did
yeah.
something. Thank you for that, Andrea. Yeah, because I find, and I hear this with a lot of the women that I work with, you know, there's not enough hours in the day. And
Mhm.
I think that our perspective is really what helps create our reality. And we
Absolutely.
all have the same amount of hours in the day. What do we choose to do with those hours? And
Mhm.
how can those hours not only make our lives better, but those around us? Because I think the secret is contribution. And the more we
Absolutely.
contribute, like you ladies, the more energy we have and the more better we feel inside, right? We feel we're doing something with purpose. So with that, ladies, talk to me a little bit about the Roots organization. We touched on it earlier, but let's dive deep. Let's talk specifically what programs are on our agenda today, and then we'll talk about some exciting new stuff that we're launching. But let's start there.
Okay.
Okay, well, we serve the community from age 6 to seniors well into their 90s. And actually last week we had a seniors program last Thursday, and we had someone on video, and she's 95. So she was on video. Her daughter was able to set her up, and because we had a group session, just a Christmas program, and her daughter set her up, and she was on there, and it was like, oh my goodness, it's so wonderful to see seniors in their 90s coming online and participating in this new technology, because they want to be together. They miss that fellowship they had together where they would meet on a regular basis. So that is something we are very happy we're able to continue. So we have, as I said, from age 6 right to the seniors, we have our after-school program. It's called Arts Literacy and Tutoring, where we help youth from age 6 to 14. And we also in the summer, that's after school, then in the summer we have a summer camp. We have programs for youth, an enhanced youth outreach worker program for youth who maybe are struggling to cope with issues. I don't like to say at-risk youth or risk, high-risk youth, because usually it's the environment around them that cause them. They're the factors that cause them to be at risk more than the kids themselves that are at risk.
I love that. I love that distinction. And if we put those labels based on environment, those children, they absorb it and they come and they bring it into reality. So thank you for that. I really acknowledge that.
Yeah. So we have that as a program. They're there to help them to cope, especially this time. COVID was really devastating on many of them, from the isolation part especially, and not being able to move freely and be restricted and no support around. Some of them don't have much of a support, so we were there to lend that. We have a youth entrepreneurship mentoring program where we're working with youth 16 to 24 who are want to become business owners or have actually started. And we've been doing workshops. We do workshops with them, match them with a mentor and help them. What we found this year too, a lot of them needed mental health support. So we had to introduce some programs where we work with them to help them work through their mental health. So that's why not almost all of our programs actually are geared towards mental wellness, mental, spiritual, and physical wellness. It's an underlying theme right through all of our programs. We also have another, it's called Healthy Mind, Strong Will. It's also another mental health program for youth and their families who really need deep interventions, deep clinical interventions. So we have a psychotherapist that work with us. We have a Fresh Start for Women program. It's for women who are in abusive situations or are suffering the trauma of abuse. It's for them and their children. We work with them again in counseling them and helping them with a fresh start. We have a men's program that we started not long ago called Black Men Speak Up. Giving men the opportunity to speak, because a lot of them don't talk about their feelings. Some would tell you, we have no feelings, men, very macho, but we give them a safe space that they can speak out and really talk about those emotions they don't want to talk among their friends. So that's a program, and that started this year, and it's really taken off. We have family programs where we work with the Peel Children's Aid Society working with one with parents and one with youth. Where do we help? Again, is a counseling program for parents to help them with the understand the techniques and what is appropriate ways of discipline and working with the children here in Peel, in Canada. And then the other one is a wraparound service for youth. And we have a similar program with Halton Children's Aid Society where we're doing similar work. And we have so many programs right now that, you know, and then we can't forget, obviously, what we call our flagship program, our seniors program. And that program, we have over 300 members of seniors within that program, from the very, very active to those who are in homes. And we provide service for them. We give one-on-one calls and check-ins of where for them to talk to us and have different types of activities, devotionals, singing, whatever. We just have those programs for them. Before COVID, we would meet regularly. One group met once a week, and well, two groups met once a week. Another one met every other week. And then they would go on St. Jacobs, they would go on a tour, they would have picnics. So all of those things had to be stopped this year because of COVID. So we tried to put some of those things online and have virtual vacations and that kind of thing. So we did have fun with them.
Oh, I love it.
Yes. And then we also, we collaborate with some other organizations within the Peel region and Halton, and we offer programs that way as well.
Amazing. So I heard that you work with from 6 all the way to seniors, and that you have such a fantastic slew of program offerings, from helping to keep little children active and engaged and, you know, really find their worth and value, to helping women who are coming out of a potential toxic or abusive relationship, to helping men speak about their feelings. I'm from a Caribbean household. Men don't really sit down and talk about their feelings. And you know, it's great to be able to give them a space and a forum, because, you know, as much as I'm all about helping women, and that is the focus of my business, we can't help women without men on board. And so that is really, really lovely. And then of course the seniors. So many programs. I'm not sure how you keep it all, but maybe talk to us a little bit about that. Like, how do you manage that? What does the team look like to do so many offerings in the community?
Actually, a pretty flat organization. Yeah. Most of our staff are the counselors. So we have a program coordinator, more depending on the program, they're counselors. So for the women program, the men's program, the youth program, the family programs, they're all counselors that run those programs. Some have assistants and some don't, but they do a fantastic job of managing. We have a manager of programs, and then I have independent consultants that work with us on things like fund development and communications. And we're also going through accreditation of our organization. So we have someone working on accreditation, and I oversee it all.
Wow. That's a lot. And is this your full-time thing now, Angela, then?
Yes, it's full-time.
Full-time, okay.
This is my full-time, because I do have a consultancy that I had when, you know, but I can't even think about that. This one is taking up a time and a half for me, but we get it done. You know, we are blessed to say that we have a lot of support from the community and from funders. So we really get the work done. You know, we've been able to build capacity and continue to build capacity to be able to do the work, because one of the things we don't want to suffer is that delivery, that service delivery, that high quality of service we provide. And we are one of the few Black-led, Black-focused, Black-serving organizations in the region of Peel. Unfortunately, for because we have over the last census, and we know it's grown since then, we had over 130,000 people who identify as Black within the community. And there are not many Black organizations, unfortunately. I'm hoping that we can build that capacity. That's why we work in collaboration with others to build that capacity, to be able to offer these services on, you know, to meet the needs that are there actually.
Yeah, because it sounds like I've lived in the community for a long time, and there's always been a need, but it sounds like with COVID, that need is heightened. Can you just talk to us a little bit about what you're seeing as a result of COVID on the community?
The has been, as I say, it's a real roller coaster, and one that goes really like that, oh, like waves, you know.
Mm-hmm,
Think about the tsunami and say, oh my, yeah, it was a tsunami that hit us,
yes.
tsunami, because the anti-Black racism movement, as well as the COVID-19 pandemic, the two of them converge and really slammed our community,
Mm-hmm.
and the mental health suffered. The positive, I would say, for the seniors, especially at the beginning, because I guess we were constantly in contact with them, we used to offer 2 days a week what we call check-ins.
Mm-hmm.
We went 5 days a week check-ins immediately.
Mm-hmm.
So they had that constant ability to talk to our staff who they were familiar with already. And so that kept them buoyed for a while. You know, they start to obviously get a bit concerned about the isolation. We did a planter set where they did some painting. We actually had what we call Be Safe Online to get more people be able to use devices to be online so they can see the video. So we had a 6-week program where for them to learn to be more savvy. This is something we offered before, but we got them to be more online savvy, to be able to use the devices online and be comfortable using them. So we had to do things like that, and that helped them because then they were able to see each other and continue that the conversation and that fellowship. So I found at the beginning, they didn't suffer as much as the women and the youth.
Mm-hmm.
They were the ones that were really isolated, and especially if the women, if they were still in that in the household with the man who was abusive, that was another added strain. They had to be concerned about, you know, what they say when they say it. They had to be concerned about being in the household 24/7 now with the person. A lot of them weren't able to manage the switch with the online online school because they don't have the skills to really help their children online.
Mm-hmm.
Those who had to work, that was another burden because some of them didn't have sick leave, so they went out to work. They had to work. So a lot of those things factored, and the mental health, the stress on people were heightened. All counselors, most of our counselors before were working kind of remotely. They were on the road. A lot of them met with their clients in-house. That stopped, but they were able to do it online. But then the strain, people wanted to talk longer. They brought in other issues, you know, so many things changed. So our staff as well had to be able to cope with all of these and also cope with their own
stress and strain.
household, right? So all of those things really come in. So the mental stress on people is just phenomenal. That is one of our biggest problems, that mental stress.
When you take that mental stress from the reasons that you just said, from COVID and from not being able to access schooling or to being locked into a place, we all know that domestic violence went way up with COVID, right? And now that we're about to embark on our second strain and we'll have another lockdown, there's some real anxiety about those people at high risk situations like those. But then you also compound what you were speaking about earlier and the state of the world over the last couple quarters, right? With no matter your political views, what was happening in the US and George Floyd and all of these things, and recognizing how that's impacting us in our own backyard, our own officers, our own, you know, just the political landscape and everything. That added, I'm sure. Can you talk a little bit about what you saw with that emergence of the two massive issues coming together for the people that you're helping?
Yes, it hit to the core, I would say. I also, because here in Peel, we had our issues, you know, within the last year, we've had 5 families affected by shootings by the police shootings. And we just recently got the result from the SIU about their verdict that the officer in charge the officer was not being charged with the DeAndre Campbell case. During this COVID period, I was asked to be a moderator with that group in Malton, the Malton People's Movement. They staged a demonstration last weekend at the police headquarters with the mayors of Mississauga and Brampton and that group, because they were upset they were not getting any proper feedback from the officials. And there were 5 families there that talk about that. Four of them were recent and 1 from before. And it was painful, heart-wrenching to hear them talk. Most of those were mental health issues, right? There were mental health issues. And
and they were also known mental health issues.
They were known, especially DeAndre Campbell. The police went to his home 5 times before.
Yes.
Why are they going ready to pull their guns? Okay, they said he had a weapon. It was okay. Aren't they trained enough to know how to manage that person? Someone with why is it that so ready to shoot, to kill? And you heard I think the father of one of them, the one that got killed earlier this year, Francisque, and he was saying, what do I do? I was depending on my son to help me. Who's helping me now? We don't see the fallout of the families that are left behind, that have to deal with that pain and suffering and the trauma, and then not get the help they need. And actually, I'm trying to advocate that in cases where this happened, that either the police or the city or province or whoever, as long as it's a shooting by the police, or that the families are immediately provided with social service assistance and grieving counselors. They should have counselors to work along with them, because they have to fill out paperwork, they have to do all these, and they're grieving, and many of them don't know how to handle it during those times.
Let me ask you then, when we're dealing with the police, and it sounds, and tell me if I'm misrepresenting, that what's really desired here is an opening of communication, right? Between the police, the municipality, and the citizen, right? How are you bridging that gap? Because as we know, right, in the community, you may have somebody who does something and it reflects the entire Black community or the entire Indian community or the entire, and it's the same with the police, right? That you have the majority of them that are really trying to keep our community safe, but there may be a few that have made a decision or are ill-equipped or ill-trained. How are we creating communication to make it better?
And I'm actually, even the Anti-Black Racism and Systemic Discrimination Collective, we've had 2 meetings with the police already to discuss things like this.
That's the first
and we work together. Yes. What can we do to help and work along to make sure it doesn't happen? How can we provide the information to the police to help them in making the decisions? And yes, the police did they have started to do some work where they have now with mental health cases they're called on. I think there are 2 mobile units. Don't quote me, I'm not sure if it's 2 or 4, but they work with the CMHA to be able to have someone with mental health training to go along with them. But they're not nearly enough. I think there are only 2, if I'm right. So it's not nearly enough to go. I heard stats the other day in our discussions actually with police. They said that where there's a mental health, where someone is able to go along, the situation is helped with, is dealt with much better, and it has a more positive outcome than otherwise. Right. So that is something that needs to be escalated, that needs to be expanded, and work with it.
And just to touch on that, right? Because that education goes both ways. We have to educate our community that this is something that they need to ask for. Yes. Because I've heard a lot of talk about defunding the police, and just my personal perspective, that might be the opposite approach we want to take. Because I think what we want to do, and you tell me your perspective, is ensure that the police have the adequate resources when they're going to these mental health calls. And that requires funding, that we make sure the police have the adequate training on how to deal with these situations when they're walking in, so that there isn't what you called earlier, pull the rifle or pull the gun, right? And in order to do that, we have to work together. And it's hard, I think. I know growing up in the community that I grew up in, it's hard to create that trust, especially when there's a breach of trust because we've lost loved ones and dear ones and because of the state of our world. But unless we have that communication, we won't make the change, right? So
That's
thank you
right.
for starting that dialogue. And I encourage, if there's anything that we can do, if I can do, in my professional career, I actually work with police, giving them different types of software. But we need to bring that community together and make sure that the voice is heard, and that at this time more than ever, we're over communicating, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Andrew, you can probably jump in here after, but our talk, when we talk about defunding the police, and as we said, and we started to use the word of rechanneling funds.
I love it.
As opposed to defund the police, because
Right.
it has a negative connotation.
Very
We
negative,
say
yeah.
rechanneling funds. And what we meant is, if they rechannel some of the funds they get to the community organizations that's going to be working with them to do the work. Because we don't get enough. And one of the things we're also fighting on the healthcare side, because that's another one of the institutions we are tackling with our collective, is that the Peel region, the funding we get is half of what other municipalities get within the Ontario and Ontario. And we have the stats. The Central Westland funders, it is half of what Toronto gets and other areas. Why is that? So we are at a disadvantage in the first place. We are not getting the funding that we require to really build that capacity within our region. So if they want to have people from our organizations work with them, we need to be funded to do that, because we don't have enough capacity within us right now to be able to send someone to do that work.
Absolutely.
So those are the things we need to look at. So when we talk about the systemic discrimination and systemic problems, those are what we're talking about. Because why is it that we're getting less funding? That is a systemic problem.
Absolutely.
Right? And Andrea works, she didn't mention the work she does on a day-to-day basis, but she works also in the field. And I'm sure your understanding of the defunding of the police was similar to ours, the reallocation of funds.
Yeah, absolutely it is. And so I've been able to sit at the table with Angela as a participant and hear and just share some of our own concerns. The idea of defunding the police, I think for some people, you have to understand that our community don't have a lot of positive relationship with the police. So the communication and interaction with the police tend to be very negative. I think one of the things that the police department really have to look at, the police department should reflect what the community looks like. And if you don't understand the community, you don't understand the people in that community and the backgrounds of that community, it's difficult, because there's a lot of fear that police officers have for our Black youth. I can speak about our Black youth a lot because that's my thing, right? So they see the Black youth and they don't value them. They don't see them as a contributing part of our society, and they fear them. So when they fear them, that value of their life isn't seen the way it should be, right? So reallocating the funds, yes, to help get people that reflect our community to be a part of our community so that they can learn and to work with our community. You will find that there will probably be a lot less problems if they were to take that approach to it. We also talked about like even having the police in the school. How effective is that? Putting the police in an institution where you're supposed to be learning,
safe, and
kind of like saying, all right, like we're creating other issues for our young people, because we know that the Black kids are the ones that there's a higher rate of Black kids who are being kicked out of high school and not
Right.
graduating, right? So what's causing that? How are we going to make our kids successful?
Absolutely.
Right. So.
And that's so important. You know, language for me, I always say, is super important. And just that shift from defund to reallocate is, in my mind, as I hear it, it means partnership, ensuring the right funding, the right education. Because until we find a way to unite, we're always going to have the systemic problem, right? Because many people that I've even spoken to this year have not realized that there is a systemic problem, right? When we get into the Black Lives Matter, they don't understand, why am I saying Black Lives Matter instead of all lives matter, right? And for me, it's, well, until Black Lives Matter as much as all lives matter, then all lives can't matter. And that brings up the second thing, Angela, that you were talking about earlier, is when we can eradicate some of these issues for the Black population, then it will help the entirety of the population. So talk to us a little bit more about your stance on that.
And yes, and as I said, and I say in the committee that I co-chair, and a lot of people there are learning as well. We have to remember that at the beginning of Canada, 1600 and whichever, 29? No, 29 is when the first slave came. 1609, I think it was. That some of the first people that came here were the French. There was a Black man, Matthew de Costa, was recorded being here, and he came as a free Black man, as a interpreter with the indigenous people. The next record of a Black person is a slave, a 6-year-old boy who's a slave. And that was before the English actually came. That was with the French. And we have to remember then that the laws and the policies and the regulations that were developed at that time to keep Blacks as slaves and indigenous people, pushed indigenous people away from the land. Right? So so we have to go back to that, and then subsequent laws and things were built on that, were built with those ideas in mind. So we have to go back to the start of those and dismantle the foundations of those systems. But those are the systems that were built to keep Blacks as slaves, oppress them, you know, not fully human, and to take away the land from, and take away the land from the indigenous people. So when that happened, and you continuously build on that, and that is what has been continued and carried on through the ages, through the millennia, that is what is there. So it became ingrained in people. That is what is supposed to. This land is for. Who is this land for? This land is for the settlers who came and found the land. You know, that rhetoric that we know is not true. Right? They didn't find, you know, nobody found this land. People were living here. And people shared the land with others who came, but the others who came had a different way of thinking of that. I would just recently listened to an indigenous person talk about this, and the way she positioned it was so beautiful. And she just talked about the ideologies of the indigenous people, how they view the land and what it meant to them and all this, and the ideologies of the Europeans, you know, and how they see things. And because of that, they were operating at cross purposes. And it was so well, the way she explained it made so much sense. And that's what we have to think about. We have different ideologies, and you know, they come in with one way of thinking, the other meet a group that's thinking a totally different way. There's a clash without that communication there, right? Again, communications.
And I find it fascinating because for me, equity is my number one thing, right? So I'm focused on women. I'm focused on women in my business, and it's for all women, regardless of their race, their language, their creed, their religion. It's all women. And in life, it's for me about all humans, right? I would even go farther to say all animals, because I'm an animal lover too, but all humans, right? But until all humans can be seen as full individuals, we really have to look at the perception of the lens we're looking at the world from. And if we're trained from before birth to see something a certain way, we don't even realize we see it that way, right? And this dialogue is so important in eradicating that. So thank you for that. And I had a sign on my front porch, and I only bring this up because there was somebody who was walking and they were Native, and they said to my son, in an angry way, "Oh, Black Lives Matter," because I had equity, love, and justice for all, but then I had hashtag BLM, and it arose something in this young man. And I wish I was there to tell him my feelings, but I wasn't. My son was. And, my son was like, he gave a smart remark or something. And I sat down and I talked to my son and I said, it's because he, as a Native, doesn't feel seen. And he feels perhaps that by this sign for a Black plate, it takes away from his. And for me, the most important thing is it's all our plight. It doesn't matter if we're fighting for Blacks, for Natives, for women, for Jewish, it doesn't matter. Yeah. Indians, we have to look at it like, by giving energy to one, it does not take away from the plight of others. It helps the entirety of equity and equality in our community. So thank you so much for saying that. And with that, you are doing some great work, but you're starting a new program now for the mental health of the people that you're serving. Can we talk a little bit about that before we wrap up?
Yes, and our last project, we realized, again, coming from the COVID and the discussions we're hearing from people and the loneliness, and sometimes they're not always able to get to their counselor. So we are starting a community support line that people can call into and have a listening ear. It's for the Black, African, and Caribbean communities, but we welcome anyone who calls, and we can help them, and we'll be able to refer them to an appropriate service if we can't help them. But it's just to have that listening ear. They may feel just lost at a particular time. Just give us a call. We're there to listen to you. If you find that you need a more intervention, a deeper intervention, we can recommend one of our counselors. Or if you wanted to go somewhere else, you can find another place to go, and give it as much as a warm handoff to the other person as possible, so that you know that we're handing you to someone who we trust as well.
Yes.
We're there to provide the information, where to go to get specific things, because some of the comments we were getting is from some of the callers that came into us, some of our clients, is they didn't want to go to certain places. Why? Because they felt lesser than. Some people were not treating them a good way, and it's like, okay, we understand. We're going to help you. We're going to try to find a place that will make you feel like a person and not make you think you're getting a handout. And so that's what we are doing. We've started a soft launch right now. We started it this week, so we can work through some of those tweak it as we go along. But we're officially launching in January the program, because we see that is there for primarily to lend that listening ear. We're there to support you, just to let someone know we're there to support you.
And you're from the community, and it makes them feel connected. And I think for me, the biggest thing that COVID has brought is disconnection. And that is what, as humans, regardless of if we're an introvert or an extrovert, we need people. We need to be connected to community in one way, shape, or form. So thank you for providing a forum. I'll include the link. This is airing in February, so it will be a roaring success, I'm sure. But people can call, and I love how you said, even if you're not part of our community that we serve, we will help connect you with the right people. So call and get some help and talk with us. The other thing you said that really kind of resonated with me is when you said it's not a handout, it's help.
Yes.
There's so much pride that runs through many of us to ask for help. I had a really hard time asking for help in my life when I needed it. And I just want you to touch on, it's not a handout, it's a helping hand. So talk a little bit about that, please.
When I see it, I see that, you know, say we're climbing a mountain and I'm ahead of you and I'm just reaching back to help you up on that next rung, you know, just, you know, I just see, okay, I'm lending you a helping hand. I'm just helping you to step on that next ledge so we can all make it to the top. You know, so it is just that reaching back to help others. We were here. I too went through some difficult periods. I too sometimes didn't want to reach out for help because I'm such an independent person. But I know when people that help me, I'm so thankful for those who did and who reach out to help. So if we can reach out and just say, come on, just give you a hand, we'll help you over there. And that is what we want to give.
And by you being brave enough to ask for help, you give permission to others to ask. Yes. And you also give permission for people to offer, because for me, for example, I want to give, right? So it's not, you're not hurting me to give. And Andrea, did you want to add anything to that?
You know what? Angela covered everything.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So ladies, I mean, I know we're at time, but you know, if there was something you could go back and either tell your younger self or tell someone out there who is either struggling or looking to make a difference or start their own business or get, you know, out there in the community, you know, the little girl or the woman out there who wants to get up to big things like you ladies are, what advice would you tell them? What would you share with them? What would you impart on them?
I would say the importance of giving back. It's so important to, even for your own self-development, it's so important for you to give. Especially we're approaching Christmas, the holidays. One of the things that we were raised with is the importance of giving. It's not about receiving, it's the importance of giving. So giving back to your community is priceless.
Absolutely. And Angela?
What I would say is, you know, we think you're being strong when you do it all on your own. But strength is in asking and receiving openly. Mm-hmm. So if you don't see it as being weak when you ask for help, if you need the help, just think of it as, you know what, I'm looking, I am strong enough to know that I am not, that I'm just seeking, that I made a mistake or things are not going the way I expect, but I can ask someone that can guide me. And yes, it is a measure of trust there because you are trusting that the person is going to guide you in the right way. Mm-hmm. But also continue to check yourself. Mm-hmm. And I say this to people who want to help us, who want to help the community, and who may come with different views of what things are. Check yourself. And even those who might ask for help, check yourself and say, why am I asking and how am I receiving? So check yourself and your biases. Mm. What make you do the things that you do? Why do you think the way you're thinking? Because some of us have that pride within us that say we shouldn't. But ask yourself, why am I afraid to ask for help? Why am I afraid to talk to someone or reach out, right? And just say, okay, if it is because somebody may think less of me, challenge yourself again to say, but why should they think less of me? I don't think less of me. I am doing something to help me get better. So have these little self-talks, you know, and check yourself and check the reason why you think the way you do and why you say the things you do, especially about others, about yourself and about others. And and I think if you can do that and do that reflection and really do it openly and honestly, you can help yourself and help others as well.
Absolutely. Thank you. And you said earlier you've traveled to 20 countries, and I'm sure all that travel and all of this community work that you've done has helped change the lens in which you see the world. So we are very blessed that you were able to share that with us today. I honor you both for the work you're doing, and thank you so much for your time to share. And for those of you who are listening to this in any way, if you need help, if you need a listening ear or a place to stay or a warm food, just please reach out to the Roots program. And if you're on the other side and you have something to give, even if it's just your time, please, we all have something to give. And I think we heard from these beautiful ladies today that the gift of life is really to give and to contribute to those around you. So try and donate to the Roots Yes program in any way that you can, so they can help continue to do the amazing work that they're doing. Ladies, thank you so much. I so appreciate you. I so appreciate the work you're doing for our community, and I can't wait to work with you more in the future.
Thank you so much, Tara. We thank you for this opportunity to speak about the work we are doing. Thank you so much.
You're most welcome.
And a blessed, peaceful, happy, healthy, and safe holiday, Christmas holiday.
Thank you. Same to both of you.
You too.
Take care, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.